Welcome to All the Day. We are back yet again. Cheston, where were you last week?
I've been in a political prison because
All right.
I'm in debt for, you know, all those hot microtransactions I've been buying on
You
Genshin
sold,
Impact.
you sold your country astray to play with some waifus?
Yeah, and I got some really bad RNGs, so I don't even have anything good to show for it.
Oh, not the RNG.
Yeah,
Are you the guy who spent 47,000?
that's me. That was my net worth times 20. So,
Took out a second mortgage and everything.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
one of those losers that prefers the term luck to RNG.
well,
Like
you
it's,
obviously have never been on Awesome Games Done Quick, so
oh,
I don't.
I know. But, well, we know how Cheston's doing. He is in a prison. How about you, Setzer?
Good. Busy, but good.
Hey, I'll take what I can get. And I am also the same. It is fixing to be election time, so it's fixing to be busy and bad. Um,
Oh, it's not like anything happens around the election.
yeah, it's not, well,
Stop being
well,
dumb.
the one perk about working in a newspaper during an election is that, they give you free pizza. Uh, and
Wow, lucky you.
that's how they would always, that's how they would always bribe you for having to work
A
extra
$10
hours
value.
and be miserable is free pizza. But now, since I'm working from home on a permanent basis, I do not get the free pizza. I instead get all the misery of the election, but none of the payoff.
They're not gonna send you food like a Twitch streamer?
I offered them. I said, like, if you donate to my stream, my journalism stream, they that would be appreciated. But they said no such thing. So the next couple weeks will be annoying, but I'm hanging in there.
Huh. And I thought I was in a political prison.
So anyway, guys, Setzer, what have you been playing?
Well, I haven't had too terribly much time to play video games, so I had to set Hades aside for this week. Total War Warhammer 2 has continued to eat up, most of the time I have when I can fit a little bit here and there. But that being said, Monday, Tuesday, I got the chance to play a lot of Steam demos. I think I played like 10, 15 of them, and
Anything
I
stick out?
took some notes. So I'm only going to talk about the ones I actually liked, as opposed to, shitting on the ones I didn't.
Aren't you
Hmm.
nice?
I'm sorry, you appear to be on the wrong podcast.
Yeah, no kidding. Manifold Garden,
Okay.
very fun puzzle game. It reminds me a lot of Portal and Antichamber. It's all about maybe rotating the world around your character, walking up the walls, the ceilings, etc. And the level kind of infinitely repeats. You can fall off a ledge and like land on the roof, if that makes sense. It takes a little bit to wrap your head around it, but it is shaping up to be a great game.
Okay.
Heard of it.
Raji, an ancient epic. It's kind of an Indian mythology game.
Hmm.
Visually, stylistically, interesting. Gameplay needs a little something something. It's like a kind of like a twin stick game, but it just needs a little je ne sais quoi. You know what I mean? Needs a little more depth.
I
Loot
see.
boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right.
Surprise mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Per Aspera. This is a game that I've been looking at for a long time. I think it was revealed at E3 like a year, 2 years ago, and I've had it on my Steam wish list ever since. So I was really excited to see the demo, and it's shaping up to be a great game. This is probably the one I'm most likely to purchase.
Okay. I'm glad you found one that you're willing to purchase. You're not just wasting the generosity of these companies to let you try their products for free instead of pre-ordering it to experience the free demo.
Yeah, it's kind of like a colony game. It's set on Mars. You have to build different buildings, map the planet, do mining surveys, all that fun stuff.
Well, it does sound kind of interesting. Like you're terraforming the planet.
Hmm.
I like
That's the
that.
goal.
No,
Sounds like a Setzer game.
it does. It really does.
And finally, Mass Builder. This is a game that was kickstarted a couple years ago, I think, and it's still not fully released. And I can't tell how old the demo is, but it's kind of like you build your own Gundam, kind of thing. Um,
Mm.
the
Oh,
mechs are very much in the Gundam style.
Mm.
hello.
And then it has some like third person shooter, third person slasher
Mm.
action gameplay, which again, it needs something. There's an ingredient missing. It's just a little too clunky. The controls are a little off. But this game has a lot of heart, and I think that with a little more attention paid to the core gameplay, it could be really great.
Well, I certainly like the premise, and I know a thing or two about building mass. So,
But
Hmm.
but I'm glad that you got some enjoyment out of that. It seems like you took advantage of those sweet Steam demos.
yeah, yeah, I had a lot of fun actually. A lot of variety out.
Experiencing the many different games that are maybe off the beaten path.
Exactly.
Well, Cheston, what have you been playing?
I have been playing Hades for
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much the entire time I've been gone.
Oh, we already heard
So,
about that last week, so we'll get on. No, go ahead.
ah, well, I imagine not knowing what you all said, I don't have too much to add other than for me, as someone who does kind of like roguelikes, I like more than I think Setzer does. I think this one so far is angling to be my favorite. I think it solves all of the problems I have with games like Spelunky, which lean, in my opinion, a little too heavily on just totally randomly screwing the player over. Hades does have some elements of randomness, of course, but I always feel like I'm kind of in control. I feel like I can build how I want to build and play how I want to play, and I feel like every time I'm making a good amount of progress. And as an added bonus, I really like I just think the art and the voice acting is all very excellent for a game of its quality or caliber.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
my experience with Hades is much less than the two of yours, but
Hmm.
what I have noticed is that I feel like in other roguelikes, like Binding of Isaac, it feels like if you just have a bad run, it's impossible to kind of advance particularly far. Like you just bad drops, bad
Yeah,
rooms. But I feel like in Hades, it feels to me, it felt like you could kind of always get going no matter what your run was going, and it felt like more like it was built around your skill as opposed to the luck-based mechanics.
yeah, I think
For
because you
sure.
can choose, like, you get the choice of what kind of perk you're gonna be looking for because it shows you on the door to each room.
Yes.
If you know that you're having a bad run in this regard, like, oh man, I'm not getting any boons that are helping me attack better. So, oh, look, I've got an Ares boon coming up. I can try and go there. Or, hey, I'm clearly like in a position where I just need a lot of health. So I'm going to go get one of those bull's hearts and stack up. So I think you're
Bull's
right.
hearts.
Is that what they're called?
Centaur's hearts, man.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, please forgive me. But like the game I think about when I play it is Enter the Gungeon because in that game, you can play that game 30 times and be somewhat decent at it, but then you'll get into a run where every treasure chest is just like total garbage. Like you'll get like a little pea shooter and the game will just kind of give you the finger and laugh at you. Whereas in this game, there's really not an equivalent to that. I don't feel. I mean, there are certainly runs that are better than others, but
Mm-hmm.
usually you can at least battle your way out of it and get something out of it. Like last night, I was having a run. I thought, oh man, this run stinks. Like I had a bow. I hadn't had any boons. I hadn't encountered any boons. I was getting a lot of centaur's hearts. I had a whole lot of HP, but my attacks were really slow, and I was using the bow and arrow, and I knew that eventually that was going to come back to bite me. And then I I started picking certain rooms, and by the end of that run, I actually made it to the final boss, and I was able to pull off DPS combos that could instantly do over 1,000 damage if I position myself right. So that was a bad run that I was able to work into a good run by the end of it, and that's I think probably Hades' greatest asset is that it is very much based on skill, the random elements just there to liven things up.
Well, yeah, to me, it feels like a game that if you were really good at it, you could probably just beat it every time, no matter what, if you
Yeah.
were particularly
Yeah.
good.
I've seen online people saying like I've got 10 consecutive wins, and
Yeah.
I doubt like even a great Spelunky player is going to get 10 consecutive wins, or most Splunky players, I would imagine, wouldn't, because every 5 runs, that game just drops a boulder on your head and laughs at you.
Well, so on one hand, I feel like that could get kind of boring because like
Yeah.
once you beat the game, you're kind of like you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think that's better game design though. So
Yeah, I
it's
don't.
kind of a
Yeah,
Setzer,
for sure.
Setzer, you finished 1 run, so from what I understand, it does change things up a little bit after you finish the game. Is
Yeah,
that true?
yeah. The game doesn't end after one victory. I haven't played it a whole terribly lot since beating my first run, just because of my own schedule. But I would say that I'm definitely not anywhere near done with the game. And frankly, as part of a broader discussion about just playing games in the modern era, I would much rather have a game like Hades where you can play it as much as you want, but there is an end point. The story does end at some point. Instead of a game like, I don't know, Destiny, to throw out an example, where, the whole thing is designed to just keep you on this treadmill, keep you paying money, keep you coming back, monopolizing your time, right?
You just
right.
had to squeeze in a Destiny reference.
What can I say?
Yeah, I was gonna say can't help yourself.
No, I just think it's a wonderful game. It's definitely among my favorite games released this year.
Amen.
Well, I my time with it has been brief, but I've enjoyed what I've played of it, and I hope to get more to it eventually.
Yeah,
But
get to level 3 so you can join us in complaining about that boss, because holy cow, I think that's probably the hardest boss in the game, having seen
Pun
the final
intended.
boss. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, indeed, actually.
what is
But
it? Some sort of giant hard penis? I don't. All right, so that's what Cheston's been up to. So what I have been playing, I've got a couple things I want to talk about. I did mention I was playing Hades. I started that briefly. I was pestered endlessly by both Setzer and Cheston to play it, and I have, and I enjoy it. I also played the demo for Kingdom Hearts Melodies of Memories. It is it is a full price $59.99 game, despite what Setzer has alleged that. um, but this demo had 4 songs, and it's pretty. I think it's pretty fun. It's kind of unique for a a rhythm game because I feel like there's a little bit of platforming involved in the sense, and by a little bit I mean it just tells you to jump sometimes to hit enemies or hit
Jump,
notes.
jump,
Yeah,
jump,
just
jump.
the Mega Man 8 thing. It's really interesting. It made me realize that I don't like the way the Switch L and R buttons feel because it hurts your fingers after a while because they're kind of stiff. So I will be playing this on the PlayStation on a TV, but I like it. I think if you enjoy rhythm games and enjoy Kingdom Hearts, I feel like you can probably get your money's worth out of this all full price. Some people complain about it being full price, but I feel like rhythm is one of the most replayable genres because you're always trying to get better scores and
Stuff like that doesn't appeal to me at all. Just trying to get a new high score doing the same stuff.
oh
Not
yeah.
interested. Not a fan.
Well, no, I understand that. I just like for anyone that knows anything about me, I'm not the biggest fan of music. Like I very rarely go out of my way to listen to things.
Especially if other people recommend it.
Yes, exactly. I would prefer to discover things on my own, but I enjoy the rhythm genre for some reason. I just get like in tune with like the beats and stuff, and it's just I think it's a really fun little genre. And this game has I think over 100 songs from a franchise I adore, and it has a story mode. So to me, it is worth the price. But I could it certainly looks cheap, so I could see how people would scoff at it. But I like it, so I don't care what other people think.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. As always, back to the RPG stuff, boys. I finished my fan translated games. I'm done with AO no Kiseki, which was the second of the 2 I've been playing. It's great. Setzer, I know that you. I'm sure that being on the internet, you're aware of like how people bitch about Mothers 3 not being localized all the time. Um,
Yeah, I've heard a thing or two.
it's something of a meme at this point, I would say. I would say that a lot of that fervor should be directed to these 2 games that I played fan translated because they are amazing. They've got great stories. They've got really interesting character development. They tie in critically to Cold Steel, which is caught on somewhat in America. So the fact that these aren't localized is kind of strange to me. Um, so I'm surprised we don't see more of a pushback on that. I even saw on Twitter localized Persona 5 Scramble was trending, which is bizarre because they
Whoa.
confirmed that's coming. So
Yeah, that's what I thought. I
there's
didn't know
no
there
need
was any
to
doubt.
there's no need to do that. It's a Persona game. It's coming. Don't worry about it. But there should be more fervor about it. I think these are great little games here. Even the ending to the second one I played like had plot crucial elements at the end of Cold Steel 1, which was like, what the fuck? So why? Because like at the end of the first game, spoiler alert, um, for Cold Steel 1, the chancellor of the main country gets assassinated, and in the end of the second fan translated game I played, it just mentions it in text, like, oh, by the way, this happens. Like, what? so so I guess if like I had gone into Cold Steel playing the game in the series in the proper order, I would have known it was coming, and it would have been less of a shock. So I keep saying it every week, but you should check out this franchise. It's pretty neat.
All you JRPG heads in the audience.
Yes, all the two of you. I appreciate the patience you have for me gushing about this series every week. But I am now on Cold Steel 2, so I've only got 3 more of these games to go, and so hopefully I'll be done with them by the end of the year. Then I can get on to other JRPGs. um,
I mean, you've really been knocking them out. I'll say that.
I have been. Well, what's good about these older games is that you can play them on fast forward a little bit because they're a little slow paced in the combat. So while theoretically they should be 45, 50-hour games, they're more like 20, 25. So I was able to play about one a week due to fast forward. But Cold Steel is a little different. They're a little longer, and so I probably won't be barreling through them at quite the rate going forward. So I'll be playing well, I think Cold Steel 3 and 4 were both made on PS4. So I'll be playing PS4 games on my new PS5. Um, and then eventually get the Demon Souls, hopefully. That's about it for what I've been playing. So I think we're ready to start on some news. So Setzer, why don't you get us started here?
I'm gonna fire that news cannon right at me.
All right, well, first bullet coming at you. Put on your 3D glasses. It's the Xbox
Oh,
Family Circus.
woohoo! My favorite.
Stephen Totilo of Kotaku had an interview with Phil Spencer on the Xbox Series X launch. Did you guys get a chance to read this?
I sure did.
I did too.
What did you think? There's a lot that was kind of interesting in here.
Well,
Phil Spencer, an affable guy.
Yeah,
what
for
I
sure.
came away from this was like Phil Spencer's kind of likable. He's a good interview, so I guess good for him.
Yeah.
What
He's
I
got that
felt,
cool uncle vibe.
yeah, for sure. He's able to do what's very few people in video games are able to do is that they sound authentic when they talk. Like he sounds like he believes what he's saying.
Very few people at Microsoft are able to do.
Well, certainly very few people at Sony. That
Very few,
gremlin
very
they
few
put
people in tech are able to do this.
that
Yeah,
that that gremlin guy they put on stage for Sony every year at E3. I guess like you can't believe a word he says. He's just like he clearly doesn't care about anything other than money. So,
Did
um,
you just call Sean Layden a gremlin?
well, I don't know. He's like weird looking. He looks kind of like a grown up hobbit, you know. Um,
Ooh, all right,
harsh takes
man.
from a harsh man.
Uh,
But
yeah, eat
my
it, Sean Layden. You
if you
PS1
happen to
hating
be
jerk.
listening on your Alexa device.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you to all of our hardcore Alexa heads. My takeaway is I feel like he's kind of right about launch that pretty much everything's gonna sell because they probably put out like a set amount that they know are gonna move, and it's all the enthusiasts that are operating on the fear of missing out, such as myself. So I feel like short term the Series X and the PS5 will sell just fine, but I
Hmm.
feel like he made a valid point. Like in the long run, people might be looking for a cheaper model. And another thing I took away from it is that he did not seem so bullish on like all games are going to support the Xbox One going forward.
Well, like I said a few weeks ago, I think that the all games will be cross-gen was in need of a pivot. to say the least.
Well, I think they're doing that now. I think they realize with Halo Infinite that little game plan isn't gonna work for
Yeah,
very
I
long.
I think we discussed some games are cross-gen being fine, but obviously at
Yes.
some point you're going to run into issues with every game,
Yes.
especially when you're trying to go back to the VCR Xbox One.
Yeah. Exactly. It is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, when you think about it, you kind of do have like the Xbox One X, that's your VCR. One S, I mean, what's that, like Laserdisc?
That is not what I was referring to when I said VCR. I was referring to the actual Xbox One OG, which literally looks like a VCR.
Oh, well, I was gonna say it's like an 8-track player at this point.
Oh, I mean, it's worse than that. I mean, I have not seen one in a while, but
I owned
they're
one.
I did too. They're a disgusting sight. It is a truly wretched model.
It looks ugly.
They, yeah, they did a much better job with the successors.
One other takeaway I had is talking about how Totila asked him if he thought that they could turn a profit on Sky on the Bethesda purchase if it's only like on Xbox going forward,
Yeah,
and he said yes, and I kind of agree because if you're looking at, I think that the concept of a system seller is kind of dated. I don't think many people buy a console for just one game. However, I think Elder Scrolls 6 would be that game that people buy a console for.
Yeah, Bethesda people are like BioWare people.
Right.
They will buy for just that thing. So that,
Exactly.
and also those games have a pretty noted PC fan base too. So
So
yeah.
when he says he doesn't need Sony,
I agree completely.
he's relying on the PC as well.
Yes, but I also think like in my and this is probably because I'm not much of a PC gamer, but stuff like Skyrim feels better to me on a TV than on a PC. Like I know older Elder Scrolls games like Morrowind feel better on PC, but with the way they're going, I feel like those games play better on consoles.
Are you
So,
trying
I
to
think
make
you're out of your
Setzer
mind.
bleed? Yeah, I was like, are you trying to make Setzer bleed
yep,
internally?
yep. I am.
For one thing, no, for one thing, not gonna let this one slide. For one thing, I can't imagine playing Skyrim without mods, and good luck doing that on your console.
I think you're able to on the Xbox, but I
Really?
think yes, you're
How's
able to
that
mod.
work? Do you gotta pay for it?
No, it's free.
You just gotta
Skyrim is free to
you just
mod.
gotta plug your Xbox into your dial-up modem.
Now, whether well, look, I should qualify this. If you're playing the vanilla game, I feel like it's a better. But I mean, as you said, who does that? But I think
I
the first
do.
time, the first times through, you should play vanilla so you can experience it as on its own merits, and then go to the mods.
You can experience it on its
Listen,
own
buddy, I don't
broken,
know how many
busted.
Bethesda games you've played,
Just
but
Fallout, really.
if you go into vanilla expecting anything wonderful,
You're
you got another
crazy.
thing coming.
Well, people love the vanilla Skyrim. Like, if you see, I know you're saying like mod stuff is better, but people play the shit out of that on 360. So it has
Well, a
some
lot of
merit
people
to
don't
it.
wear seatbelts either, so you
Well,
know.
not. Well, that's why they got click it or ticket, bro. So people will learn. So I didn't think about the mod thing, so I will roll it back a little bit. But I still feel the mod stuff is more of a hardcore consumer thing. Like I feel like basic people that just want to goof around in Skyrim don't care as much about that.
You don't think they like clean faces?
No, they like them
Oh,
dirty faces.
true. I do like a good dirty face. I'm playing on Switch, the dirtiest of all faces.
Yeah, I was gonna say
That nice 144p dirt.
GBA
Oh,
style graphics in Skyrim.
Skyrim has never looked more um, like Minecraft, another Microsoft property.
See, that's brand convergence. That's synergy.
There we go. That's what they're going for. God, Phil is so smart.
He knows what's up, man.
Unlike that gremlin, Sean Layden. Probably don't even know what a pixel is.
No, well, I mean, we know Sony stands on backwards compatibility. People don't play those old games, so
Yeah, but they don't play Shadow Complex or Joe's Diner.
no, Joe's Diner Bros. It's over. Can you
Uh,
believe it?
Rip.
Rip indeed.
Well, speaking of PlayStation, they did post the PlayStation 5 user experience first look. Did you catch this? I thought it was
Yes.
just insane.
I didn't watch it. Can somebody give me a Spark Notes?
So parties aren't just, ephemeral groups of whoever is online and invited right now. They're more
Hmm.
like they're persistent, right? They're kind of like Discord channels, I guess you
Kind of
could
like
say.
a Google Plus circle.
Maybe.
Sure.
That's
And
for
they
my
were
Google
saying
Plus
like,
homies out there.
you can if one of your buddies is streaming a game, right?
Hmm.
You can put his stream picture in picture while you play a different game. Holy hell.
I
Like
thought
that
that
is
was
the
cool.
most technologically interesting but completely superfluous feature I've ever seen in my
Oh,
life.
I'm never gonna use that ever, but it's pretty
No.
cool that it's there.
No.
Because
I
when I'm
could
playing a
like
game, I want to play a game. I don't want to like watch someone else play while I play. It seems kind of
Well,
distracting.
yeah.
could you use it for cheating in multiplayer games? Like, or not cheating, but like
Screen
if you're
looking
both on,
2020.
You know what? I think that's a good question.
if you're both on the same team, instead of relying on your dumb friend who's probably illiterate and can't talk
Well, they're playing
to tell you what
PlayStation, so
they
of course.
see, well, this is true. But they then you can actually just look at their little stream and go, okay, that's where they are. I can see what's going on there. Could be a huge strategic advantage. Somebody could take it. Nobody will do this, but somebody could take advantage of this.
I think I think if you can, people will take advantage of it.
Oh, well,
I would
I meant
assume there's some
developers.
blocks.
I meant a developer could turn this into something cool, but they
Oh, they
probably
won't.
won't. Yeah.
Indie developer might, but a AAA will wait until an indie
Well,
developer
because
does
then
it.
you're like, well, okay, now I can't do this on Xbox, so I guess
That's
that's
true.
lame.
Well, you got
So that's
PlayStation
interesting.
exclusive.
What else besides wacky parties with simultaneous streaming?
So they were showing what's that game where you play as the Sackboy or whatever?
It's like Sackboy's
Sackboy's
Adventure.
Adventure?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he was showing that off. And basically the game itself is split into like delineated chunks, right? You might call them levels.
Hmm,
And
interesting.
it was like you navigate levels through the PlayStation 5 UI if you want to, and the developer has programmed like tutorial videos for all of the little trophies and whatnot. If
Wow.
you like, yeah, so if you are playing a level and you want to collect, I don't know, like a Jiggy or whatever. I don't know what they are in that game.
Well, it's a new one for Little Big Planet, so I have no idea.
Right. But you can't find it. You can just pull up in the PlayStation 5 UI. How do I find this little item? It has
Whew.
like a little video of the developer playing the game, and he goes and finds it, and then you can just
Well,
follow right along.
it is an interesting idea because I like the idea. Like I like that you can like all in one. You don't have to go to a computer or your phone to look up strategy guides. That said, I still probably will just use my phone for if I need like a quick help because it's like I'm not navigating through the system UI to do it.
Yeah, can I ask
It
a
just seems more
question of
cumbersome
you two
for
grown
me.
adults? So, whenever they show these UI things, they really focus heavily on stuff like parties, and they're focusing on these tutorial videos and all this stuff, stuff you could access elsewhere. Does anybody actually use this stuff? Because for me, at this point, it's like if I wanted to do a party, it's way easier to use Discord on my phone or my laptop and just go right to the website rather than, try and muddle through whatever Sony or Microsoft's interface is.
Think we're in the wrong age group because I know I've seen like teenagers and stuff get on like PlayStation group chat and just hang around all day. So
I guess that makes sense, but I mean, I would just think that the phone at this point, who doesn't have their phone around at all
well, I
times?
agree, but
It's kind of nutty to me, but I mean, it's
I mean
neat.
these are
It is
features
neat,
that are
but
probably not for us. They're for people like this want convenience that are just not gonna get up and like you know how like if you go to the PlayStation store or the equivalent and there's like demos like video demos or whatever or what trailers,
trailers.
video demos. What the hell's wrong with me? There, but like on the storefront, there's trailers. I like who watches those via the game store. Like I've done it like twice, maybe.
I'm shamefully, I will admit that I have done it a few
Okay,
times.
well, I feel like it's just more convenient to look that stuff up on YouTube, but it's there, and I guess I
Well,
like that the
yeah.
option's there. It's not for me, but it's kind of nice that there's options, you know?
I
Yeah.
it really yucks my yum when the Microsoft Store does that Netflix thing where you
Oh,
go
I
to a
hate it.
game and it will autoplay the
That
trailer.
sucks.
I makes that
That's way worse
that
than
makes me want to.
1080p UI.
I think any company that willingly does that should go bankrupt
Yes, they
immediately.
should. I hate it.
It's terrible. I don't think Sony's autoplays. I don't think.
Now, the one
So good
the
for
one
them.
thing I really enjoyed from the little PlayStation UI presentation that I would actually take advantage of if you're playing a game that takes advantage of these features where it like segregates the levels or whatever. Um, sometimes it'll show you like how long they estimate how long your playtime is left for like a certain level or something, and I enjoy that. I think that's a great idea because they're like when I'm playing these like RPGs, I'm like, well, do I think I can finish this in an hour or so? Also, I have to kind of do some guesswork about what time I have left. So it's nice that they like have something where they can kind of tell you like, well, based on how you play, we think you have about 10 minutes left for this until you get the achievement or finish the level or whatever. So I think that is a neat idea.
So here's my question: who is determining those metrics?
I think it's
Because
machine
I
based.
wonder if they're going.
Valve playtesters.
It makes me think of like back in the day when Donkey Kong 64
It's
was
like
coming
80
out,
hours.
and it was like 80 hours of gameplay. Like okay, like what brainless slug do you have on the
Well, they always
joystick?
overestimate, but from what I gathered in
Right.
the video they showed, it's like AI based, where they're basing it based on your play history and achievements and
That
stuff.
is
So,
interesting.
but we'll see. Like again, just like with what Setzer was saying earlier, we'll see how many game developers actually take advantage of this. But I think it's a neat idea.
It's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Neat
Yeah,
little
I mean, I think
features.
that was the running theme. Cheston, you mentioned muddling through the PlayStation and Xbox UIs, but um, they seem to put a lot of effort into making it so you're not muddling, and maybe these features are a little more accessible and a little more easy to use instead of being a confusing slog.
That's nice. Yeah, my main hope really, like I didn't watch the video because honestly, I knew I wasn't going to care about 90% of the things. All I need to know is does it load fast?
Yes.
It
And
loads
that's
fast.
it. That's all right. That's what I need to know. Because that's my favorite UI right now is the Switch UI because that thing shoots up in 5 seconds and you can get into a game very quickly. It doesn't have any of the other issues and I was hoping the solid state drive would bring us closer to that on the other
Well, I will
platforms.
say when I booted it up, I expected it to be like a really boring improvement of the PlayStation 4 UI, which was a very boring improvement of the PlayStation 3 UI. But it impressed me a little bit. It was a little more than I was expecting.
Some people like the cross media bar on the
I
PS3
like it, but I just
um,
think it's
and would be offended if you said the PS4 interface was better.
I mean they're fools. The PS4 interface is better. It's just kind of boring. um, but I mean, again, like it's just simplistic. So
Is it in 4K?
yes, take that,
Okay. I
Microsoft.
just answering. Yeah, console war
That's
over.
right.
So, these new consoles, when you fire them up, you log into an Xbox account, a PlayStation account, right?
I sure do.
And I, of course, I'm always using my Steam account. Now, how's I beg the question, how is that any different from a Facebook account?
No, I
That's
never
what
thought of it that way.
that's what Andrew Bosworth, VP of Facebook VR, asks. As people get increasingly frustrated with the fact that if you buy an Oculus Quest 2 and you do not have a Facebook account, you just bought a paperweight.
Well, here's one difference. I know that when I make a new Microsoft account, I don't have to authenticate it. Like I don't have to be like, this is me, this is Derek, here's my ID. So that's one difference, and it doesn't take weeks to verify. So I don't have to sit with my Oculus or my Xbox One and wait to play it while some human makes sure I'm not some sort of Russian elite
Ooh,
op.
sidebar. What are you talking about?
What do you mean?
Hmm.
Like, what do you mean? Like, you have to do that on Facebook now?
Yeah,
Yes, they're trying to cut down
Really?
on.
you have to submit a picture, and if it like rings the buzzer that someone else has used your face, then it will automatically not let you create an account.
Well, they can suck my
This
butt.
is to
Like,
combat
that's not
Which,
gonna
fake
happen.
news and stuff like that.
yeah, and so
Well,
the latest problem is if you deleted your Facebook account, then you bought an Oculus, and now you try to make a new account, it will recognize that your face is already on the Facebook
mm,
and say that you're trying to, hijack this other person's account or, pose as them and not let you create an account ever. And there's nothing customer support can do to help you. So you're just screwed. You're locked out of your Oculus forever. Sucks to be you.
And that is insanity. And the stuff they're saying, like they're like trying to say, like, if you're worried about it, you can like have separate friends on your VR friend list, and you can go by your internet handle instead of Derek, you can be like Pro Gamer 420 or whatever. But my response to that is, well, why do you need to be intertwined with Facebook then? If you're saying like all the features can be separate, why do they need to be intertwined?
Well, they posted a very long article about that, extolling the virtues of Facebook's privacy and security tools. If I were going to pick one thing more oxymoronic than Facebook and security, it would be Facebook and privacy.
The company that is more happy to sell your data to the first bookcomer than anyone else? Come on.
it makes me pine for the days when Facebook integration meant that every time I got a trophy in Uncharted 2, it would post it on my Facebook timeline.
Those were the days.
Yeah, that's right. You got to see that I got 50 headshots with the pistol. Not you got to see my entire life history and my all my private information.
No, I just
Mm.
don't understand why they feel the need to push this. Like, it feels like a very half-baked idea that they weren't ready for when it launched.
Well, they want your money, or they want money.
And data, which
Yeah,
they can sell for
which is
money.
worth money. Yeah, which is worth a lot of money. Worth a lot more than an Oculus Quest, that's for
Right.
sure.
Well, I guess you got to spin it somehow, right? But to me, this makes like, why would you buy an Oculus Quest ever now?
Yeah, I mean, there are just so many better products out there. I don't see what they're doing adding a negative incentive to their own
Well,
offering.
those people that jumped off the Kickstarter back in like 2012, they're laughing now, 8 years later. Like, haha, I was right. Facebook ruined it all.
I mean, they were kind of laughing when their CEO flamed out, and then now they're laughing again. So, I've been a lot to laugh about in regards to Oculus.
Well, speaking of out of touch megacorporations trying to harvest your data through video games, I have some bad news.
Oh boy, lay it on me, bro.
Oh, give it to me light. I can't take anymore.
We missed one of last week's biggest stories.
Oh,
I fully accept responsibility for not informing our audience that Amazon Game Studios' hit game, Crucible, was
Oh
canceled
no!
on October
I thought
9th.
this was about the
I
Halo
know.
3 mode, the Crucible. This is awful.
No, no,
you know what?
unfortunately, the game that was developed for 6 years, released with no fanfare, unreleased, put into private beta for 2 months, I believe, is canceled.
Oh, can you believe it?
You know what this reminds me of, and I hate to do this, and you can cut this if it's too niche, but Derek, you'll appreciate this at least. You know that episode of Futurama where the time continuum keeps skipping?
When I think of niche, I think of Futurama. But
Well,
yes, I remember that
but
episode.
I mean, this is a very specific reference. Well, the time, and they have this bit where they're like showing it's a news story on this celebrity who's
Oh yeah,
big, and then it skips forward 2 seconds, and then oh, they're having
they're dead.
trouble, and then they're
Yeah.
dead. It's like that with Crucible. It's like it feels like just a few weeks ago we were saying, oh, it's going back into closed beta, and now nope, it is dead. It was just dead and gone.
Well, my assumption is that Amazon wanted this to be a giant mega like gangbuster hit. Wanted it to be like the next League of Legends. They saw that that was not going to happen, and they're like, "Well, fuck it, let's move on." And
Writing's
that's
on the
just what they
wall.
Yeah,
Get to
probably.
work on that New World MMO.
At best, we're going to be like a mid-level indie success. We can't have that. We got to have like AAA all-star
It's
success.
got to be
This is
quadruple A.
Amazon Studios just seems like they came into this whole thing like super arrogant, like we're going to make the next esport mega hit game, and we're just the best because we're Amazon. And they were like, well, we own Twitch, so we're going to like force feed it to everyone, and it's going to catch on. It's going to be a big deal, without like understanding, I don't know, anything about the industry.
Anything about
So
making a fun game?
yes, there's like we're gonna put all the trimmings that we think people like, but not think about the gameplay. um, if it, in a word, soulless game design, kind of like
Yeah.
Tokyo RPG Factory, but on a much bigger scale.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's bizarre. You know, they're talking about it's going to have Twitch integration, it's going to be integrated into, Amazon, it's going to be integrated into the Fire devices. You know, they were talking about those for a while. I'm sure it'll be integrated into that Luna thing they're pushing now. And then, we're going to be able to harvest so much data out of how you play these video games. And it's just bizarre, that video games are now like a mechanism to create a dossier on you that can be sold to advertisers.
Well, it seemed like a game without an identity. It reminded me of like the famous Battleborn tweet, where it's like hobby
Yeah,
grade,
totally
consumerist.
incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Hobby grade.
On a related note, did you all see the picture of Randy Pitchford with Godfall to show that the game has gone
Yes.
gold?
Yeah.
Oh, that guy
No,
is such
but
a
that's
huckster.
funny.
And on another side note, what does it even mean to go gold anymore?
Well, yeah, it's
1.0 is,
games
certified.
are never done. That's like that used to be like, oh right, the game is done. And now it's like, I guess it's ready to print.
it's funny you mentioned that, because part of like the Crucible thing is like in 2018, some of the developers were pushing it to like just release, like just put it out there, even though like there was still some stuff like that needed work. I'm like, well, that's where game development is now. We
Yeah,
just
I mean,
put things out there if
it
it's
seems to work
incomplete.
for other people, so I guess why
It
not?
does. Yeah.
And what Bethesda put out Fallout 76 half baked, and over the past 3 years has made it into something of a game, and then.
No, they haven't.
Well, I mean, depending on
Don't
who you
listen to
ask.
them.
Yeah,
Don't
I
listen to
don't.
the
Well, I don't
shills.
listen. I don't trust people. But it's certainly more of a game than it was when it launched.
Not
Which,
hard.
well, yes, but the point is that why not release it early and just get it out there?
You know,
And keep
one thing I hate
plugging
is like
away.
when game publications do the hindsight thing. Like everyone saw that Fallout 76 was going to be a disaster, and like they immediately were like, "This no NPC thing is bullshit." And then like game publications they just don't extol those things that everyone else is saying. And then like 2 years later, they're like, "Well, everyone knew Fallout 76 was going to be bad." Like, well, you didn't say that at the time.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I know what you mean. Like Mass
'cause
Effect Andromeda.
or
Yeah, that's the
or
big one.
FF13
Yeah,
to me, because like
yeah,
I remember when that game came out, the reviewers all loved it. You didn't really see a lot of the same complaints you saw everywhere else.
yeah,
Then like 4 years later, why is FF13 so disappointing? Like, well, where was
yeah.
that at the time?
Oh, speaking of that game, I saw a headline for 13 remake, and I almost had a
I
heart
know.
attack thinking it was Final Fantasy 13 being remade, because
had
you
a
had just
second
said
heart
something
attack.
about that last week, Derek.
Then you had a second
What?
heart attack when you realized that it was the game 13 for the GameCube.
It's back again, baby.
The game that like 5 people have been saying, "Hey, were they ever gonna remake that?"
Hey man, I'm all for it. That era, bring
It
it
had a
back.
cool art style in 2003.
If Ty the Tasmanian Tiger can come back, then I think 13 can come back.
So to answer
Um,
your question, because this
oh, for the
topic,
record, before you move on, I
yeah,
feel like I should say this. I like Final Fantasy 13. So
Yeah,
know.
we
know.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell
Okay.
me.
I'm telling any audience that might think I'm hating on it. I think that
Damn,
game
you
is.
mean to tell me Derek is a Final Fantasy apologist?
Bro.
This podcast will not be long enough for me to properly defend it, so I'll just let that one go.
We'll do our
Um,
Final Fantasy ranking podcast later.
Well, that one won't rank terribly high, but I don't think it's as bad as people make it out.
Well, yeah. But it has to rank high because remember we invited our Square Enix rep to be on that podcast, and he
True.
told us he'd only be on if we said Lightning was the best character.
We invited Toriyama himself.
Yeah.
Oh, I did say that Lightning was pretty cool, and that I wanted to marry her, but I couldn't because I was already married. But that wasn't good enough.
Said she should be in Smash Brothers and PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale.
Would you
Well,
convert to Mormonism for Lightning?
Probably.
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah, I probably would.
So you kind of you said why is it like this? You hate it when press does that. Maybe you
Yeah.
didn't ask why, or you just said you hated it. But I don't know. We've both at some point in the past been given free copies and been reviewers ostensibly, right?
Yeah.
For a small website. Did you never feel like pressure at all to like, say you're reviewing a game like BioShock? Did you not feel pressure to, whatever you felt about it, give it something kind of close to other reviewers?
No,
Okay. And we were small
my
time, so it's
we
different.
were small time. I did not read other reviews because I did not want it
Okay.
influencing my opinion.
Well, all
And
right.
if anything, I was a little harder on games that I really enjoyed than I should have been.
Yeah.
Because like I reviewed during my short time with that website two of my all-time favorite games, Persona 4 and Valkyria Chronicles,
Yeah.
and they did not receive perfect scores from me.
It,
And upon reflection, they would have, they should have, but
if I
I
had to
was looking
guess,
for flaws.
a lot of that is just like a peer pressure kind of thing. Like, you put, let's say a Final Fantasy 13 comes out, you're automatically going to have certain people who are going to give it a high score because it's a Final Fantasy game.
Right.
And then other people are going to be like, okay, well, if we don't give it something close to that, there's so many incidents like when Jeff Gerstmann gave Twilight Princess an 8.8. People still know that score because he got so much crap for giving that game an 8.8, which is what it deserved.
By the
So,
way, that shows how interesting Crucible is. This conversation on it devolved into like video game review scores.
yeah,
So,
this is
are you
fair.
wondering why this
Anything
game was
but
canceled?
Crucible.
So
Yeah.
it's
If
just
you're wondering why that was canceled, there you go.
so I think that's why you have press outlets that are like, oh yeah, Final 13 is great, and then a few years later, once the peer pressure is worn off and the fans who were quick to defend it have come to terms with what it is, then there's less pressure and you can just be like, yeah, this game's not that good. So
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is review scores on release day are just about useless because by the time a game is 3 or 4 years old, the tone is totally shifted.
Well, that's true. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just tired of seeing
and
like how games are like that
right.
reviewed well are major disappointments.
Mario
It's just
Sunshine, 9 out of 10 game in 2002. Now
still
in
is.
2020, it's like the worst, most disgusting, awful platformer ever made. Just putrid. I always hated it. Yeah,
Except it's awesome.
except
Anyone that says that is
except for
wrong.
it's fine. It's pretty good. it's the seventh best Mario I've heard. So
Mm.
yeah,
Sorry that you're not an doo-doo fanboy there, Setzer. You
Huh?
can't
What?
appreciate. Exactly.
it's quick. Say
So
something to
to
revive him. Destiny.
so to recap, Amazon Game Studios is kind of like they think they're way bigger than they are. You're not anything in this industry until you've had a success, and they've had zero. So why their arrogance that they think they can just come out of nowhere, make something that's going to be a major success, and be something and be a major power player is silly.
Well, it worked for Amazon in so many other fields.
I guess, but video games are different. Not every field is the same,
Tell
no
it to
matter how
Bezos.
well. I'm eagerly anticipating their next failure. Like what is it called? Like Heaven's Word? No, that's FF14.
New World.
um, okay. I was gonna say because my other guess was Horizon. So like whenever New World flames out in 2022, and people are like, "Why did it fail?" Well, that's because no one cares about it. You tried to artificially make a big property without looking into what makes a big property successful. So until they like actually try to make a good game and not just try to make a mega hit, they're just gonna keep failing, in my opinion.
Time will tell.
I've been wrong many times before, and I expect to be wrong again. So, but
I,
I s-
yeah, I don't know. I think New World is not gonna last. And I
why
have
would
no
it?
clue what else is on the menu for AGS. So
When Luna succeeds due to all my Cold Steel bros playing Cold Steel 3 on it. So,
And then they're
well,
like, are
no.
there others? Like
Boy, howdy. um, so, I don't know.
just ask
I,
Derek, and he'll try to explain to you why there's 9 of these games that have like the same name and are indistinguishable.
they're not indistinguishable. And
here we
if you
go.
like simply if you simply listened to anything I said, it's really not that hard to figure it out.
I can't listen, Derek.
That's
I
true.
have.
You're a teacher. You're kind of ingrained in
We're
this
the
teach and not
world's
listen.
worst listeners. We talk. People listen to
Yeah,
us.
that's true.
Jeez.
Well, speaking of games that are gone, we have another obituary this week.
Yeah.
StarCraft 2, 10 years.
Oh,
Oh, 10 years too young.
I know.
they
Didn't even make it to high
so.
school. On one hand, I respect Blizzard for their long and proud tradition of updating games forever. Like I feel like Diablo 2 updated for like 2 decades. But I don't know. At some point, you just gotta move on. You know.
Yeah, I will say I couldn't really get into StarCraft 2 as much as I had hoped. Um,
Me neither. I bought it at launch, and I just never really hit.
yeah, yeah, I played through the campaign, had a good time, played some multiplayer on the ladder, and thought, you know what? I'm not having fun.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
The
Yeah,
game is
yeah,
alright. It's alright. It
They've
is a
made their money. It's a major esport.
and
I
it's a
mean,
relic of a bygone era. So
yeah.
yeah. The
no
genre is
surprise.
almost dead.
Yeah.
The esports scene never really took off.
It took off just with other games.
Okay, the StarCraft 2 esports scene never took off.
Thank you. I mean, yeah. It never became like the major sport of a country like StarCraft One did. Um, so I don't know. I say it had a good run. Like if it was any other game, I'd consider it to be like a major success. But StarCraft is coming off like arguably one of the most successful games ever made. So it's just in its shadow, I guess.
Living in its own shadow. Dying in its own shadow, I should say. As I mentioned earlier, games should end.
They should.
No king rules forever, to quote another Blizzardism.
Well, and yet they try to make WoW live forever. That's a boy that needs to be put down.
Yeah, that
Uh,
one's way past its due.
that one's starting to stink a little bit.
Hey,
Rigor
don't speak
mortis has
too
already set
soon.
in.
They're going back to the 60 level cap. I think it's back.
Oh yeah,
Oh, that'll do
Yeah,
it for sure.
I told you they're
that'll
flattening the
that'll bring the
levels.
kids back.
Yeah.
Just much like the curve, it has been flattened.
Did you guys catch the Baldur's Gate 3 news? Not the early access.
Yeah, man. Apparently, people aren't very creative.
Who would have guessed?
No,
Oh dear.
we gave you guys the option to play as freak shit tieflings. Why not? Why aren't you doing that?
It turns out most people want to be boring and play as the most default, close to them races they can.
All right, yeah, and I mean, Baldur's Gate is a D&D property, so I
I don't
mean,
know what you were expecting.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
the story here is that Baldur's Gate 3 has a very in-depth create a character system, and I've seen some things people do with it, and it's very unique. But in reality, what people do is make what's closest to them, and as it turns out, what's closest to them is just some brunette white dude in his 20s.
uh,
Not an elf, not some sort of horned beast, just a guy.
The classic human fighter.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I'm as guilty as anybody playing Baldur's Gate 3 because when I play Mass Effect, I use standard Shepherd. So, I mean, it's
I
just
mean, to me, this is common sense. This is
yes,
something
I
that
agree.
I have known for forever. I don't know why this is
Yeah.
considered news.
I've never known anybody. Have you, either of you ever met anybody who actually made like a Khajiit in Elder Scrolls?
No, I always play
I'm
as a
not certainly not
Breton
in their first playthrough.
No,
Uh,
or like a weird looking orc thing. Like I don't know. Everybody I
or an
play, I've ever,
Argonian. Yeah,
yeah, everyone I've ever talked to is like, yeah, I'll just choose a human. You know, my wife played Dragon Age. She just made a petite red-haired woman. So
well,
I mean,
my wife
damn.
makes
Wonder why.
elves,
yeah,
so
I know it's weird. So yeah, I think I just what I thought was funny was the tweet, like the way it was voiced. It was like it was almost like somewhat joking, but then it was almost somewhat scolding too. Like,
Yeah, it
hey,
was a lecture.
hey, you numbnuts over there. We put all this work into the create a character system. Could you stop just creating the one standard thing? And it's like, hey, listen, you make the tools, but I mean, you gotta understand that that's pretty much the same for any creation tool set. You put a lot of work into it, and a percentage of the population will do something cool with it, but most people are just gonna do some stupid stuff.
Right. Your hardcores, your insane people will make something
Yeah,
fun, but most people aren't like that.
yeah. Most people, when they got the sport creature creator, they just made a sentient penis,
And there's
and
another
yeah,
yes. And there's another thing, like people just want to kind of play the game. They want to get past the character creation bit, so they may not be looking to make elaborate creations. They just want to get in.
for the
So
people watching the video version of this podcast, I'm actually holding the sport creature creator in my hands right now,
that's a very unflattering thing to
Courtesy
say about your
of.
son.
courtesy of one Setzer. I am. It's a good-looking box. It's got all of these creatures that I could make, but I think I'm
But won't.
just gonna make some balls with eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I usually pick pretty orthodox options in these kinds of games because the game is built to assume that that's what you did for a
Yeah,
reason.
true.
Um,
You don't have
I
NPCs
mean, you can
reacting
play
like
these games, like the Elder Scrolls example. You can play as a Khajiit, you can play as an Argonian, but 9 times out of 10, the game doesn't really acknowledge that. The game doesn't really make any reference to that or incorporate it into how other characters react to you, right? And whether or not that's the case in Baldur's Gate 3 specifically doesn't really matter when I think players have been trained over the course of decades to anticipate games that will not really react to those kinds of unorthodox choices.
Yeah, I think in my time with character creations, the only person I've seen like put effort into making unique characters is my wife, who makes like really unique looking elves and stuff and Elder Scrolls Online and stuff like that. So this sort of thing is not for everyone. So I don't know why they're so surprised. Like, I mean, I actually think back to Mass Effect where I tried to make my own character and he looked really stupid and awful.
Yeah,
So I just used
exactly.
like he looks terrible in the cutscene. So it's like, well, I'm just gonna stick with Shepard. So so I think that's how a lot of people
you
see
didn't
it. They don't
like when
want
you
like
walked on the Normandy and everyone's like, "Oh God."
like I actually like got a decent chunk in the Mass Effect 2, I think, with a creative character and said these cutscenes are awful with this guy. So I had this restarted. So I think a lot of people are like that. They just don't want to be taken out of the immersion by having like a really weird looking character. So
True that.
Well, speaking of
Um,
knowing your audience, NBA 2K21 is charging $60 for the game, but they have unskippable ads too. I don't really play sports games. Justin, can you fill me in on this one?
well, I mean, you said it yourself. It has unskippable ads, and I think for someone who doesn't play sports games, some added context would be helpful. Sports games, specifically NBA 2K, are filthy with advertisements, as is like literally every part of the game is brought to you by something. Like I'm pretty sure it's been a while since I played 2K, but I remember it used to be the post game report brought to you by Snickers, or the Nike sponsorships on the in the stadium, and it's just everywhere there's ads, or they have ads everywhere, and so the idea that they're shoving it. They found one other place that had been ad free, and they're finding a way to shove it in there. I mean, gotta give it to them. They have no shame about making this game $70 and then goosing it even more for as much profit as they possibly can.
well, these NBA 2K games have been on a downward trend since they had the one good one. Well, it was like 2008.
They had a few good
And then,
ones. It was God, dear. Listen, I told you on the podcast a few weeks ago. It was 2010 was when they made the good one with Michael Jordan
oh,
on the
so a
cover.
decade ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So they wrote out this goodwill from their one good game for a decade.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
so congratulations.
I think they're gonna continue. I'm curious. I wonder. I was thinking to myself, like, obviously for some fan bases, this would be it.
Well,
But
this is why we need competition in
well,
sports
it's
games
true. But
because
people only buy like 2K. We talked about Bethesda. 2K is a game that people will buy a system only to play 2K, and they'll play
right.
the new one every year. I think we even know someone who kind of does that, and that's how are they gonna break? what is it going to take? What is this the thing? I don't think it is.
Well, that's
But
why I'm saying
I'm
they need
curious.
competition. Like
Oh
we need the
yeah,
bad boy EA back in there to make NBA live again,
yeah. But
because
unfortunately, their
basketball
competition
fans are
is
so cucked. They've got no other option to play like any other game. They just want to play their stupid basketball games. They got 2K and that's it. So their options are be advertised to and play $1 billion in microtransactions, or don't play basketball. That's all they've got. So they need competition in that genre. Like
uh,
otherwise, this is going to keep going. Because why would they stop? Because what are they going to do? Not buy 2K?
I heard
Crazy.
I heard some I read I should say some people saying that I guess they had this last year and then they patched it out, and so I don't know if they're just well we can try it again or what they're doing, but
Well, they've already like, well, people hate us already because we're charging 70. We started the trend of $70 games on new consoles. We were the first one to do it, so well, everyone hates us anyway. And what are they gonna do? Buy another basketball game? Go enjoy NBA Jam, nerds. So there you go. Why would they do anything different?
hey, well hey you just I think you just started a political movement. Let's get everybody to buy a Sega Genesis, an NBA Jam
Yes.
Tournament Edition, and forgo all of these modern basketball games to send a
Saying
message.
for once, EA could save us all. This
Yes.
NBA Live comes back,
And we could
then
also
they
save Sega at the same time. What a
right.
cool kill two birds with one stone situation.
I agree with this.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hate 2K. I hate their stupid company, and I feel like they're the most they've surpassed EA as like the worst in the market.
Oh yeah,
They're just
they're
awful,
worse. Somehow they're worse. I think it's because EA is really incompetent and 2K knows what it's doing.
right?
EA is
2K is
just
knowingly
EA is just
evil.
like bumbling over itself every step of the way. Whereas
Well, and 2K is the GTA publisher, aren't they?
Take Two, yes, they are.
Well, so there's your answer as to why GTA has released GTA 5 on 3 different consoles.
Yeah, Take
Because
Two is
why make something new when you can just bilk it for 80
yeah. I
years?
hate to see what they're gonna do when they bring BioShock back.
Oh well, you pay like $4.99 for a new power.
Yeah.
It's like,
2.99 for another Lighthouse.
Bioshock Infinite sucks.
No, it doesn't. It's fine. Shut up.
Well, our final item of the week. We talked a lot about the future of video games, loot boxes, ads, microtransactions, data harvesting. Let's take it a little retro. Game Maker's Toolkit asks the question, are lives outdated game design? Boys, what do you think?
The answer is it depends.
Yeah, my
Yep,
answer
um,
too. God, we're a lot of help.
um,
that's a three for.
it yeah, it's because the first thing I thought of this was Youka-Laylee 2, which does not have live and adopts the check.
Ukulele and the Impossible Lair.
I don't care. Youka-Laylee
I
2.
I lowercase the I and N in Infamous every time I write it, so I just need you to be specific.
I see. Well, the thing, one of the proposed like alternatives to lives is this checkpoint system in levels where each level has become like a microcosm, like a bunch of smaller levels. And to me, what this does is make every level interchangeable. Like I can't pick any of them out; they all feel the same because there's no challenge. You just brute force your way through, and eventually you make it. Like there's no like that level anymore because they're all kind of the same. They all blend together, and I feel like that approach is wrong. The best level in that game is the one that is a traditional level where there's no checkpoints. It's you're going through the level, and if you die, you just go back to the beginning. That's it. So it just
Yeah.
depends.
I mean, I hadn't thought of that example, and you mentioned it to me over text, and I was like, oh man, that's a great example because you're right. What it does is it makes each level like up until the checkpoint, it just makes it trivial. Like it suddenly, I can remember specific levels are like, oh man, it's real pain. I can see a check. I know a checkpoint's coming up any second because there's like 20 of them in each stage. So if I
Right.
just, mad dash through this and take some damage and maybe by the skin of my teeth survive, I'll get to the checkpoint and then I'll never have to think about this part of the level again. And so
Right.
that's a case where if you had a life system and less checkpoints, the game probably would be more interesting overall, to
Well,
me at
yeah.
least.
Well, because if I look at 2D platformers, that sort of system really hurts it for the most part. Like there are exceptions. Like I think Lives and Super Meat Boy or something would be totally pointless.
Yeah, I
But
think I think this this YouTube channel or this publication, whomever it is. I don't remember who you said. I think they're asking this question maybe 10 years too late, because I feel like this question made a lot more sense before the resurgence of 2D platformers. And I was thinking specifically playing this Mario 3D All-Stars collection. Those are 3 games that have lives where it makes no sense to have
Yeah,
them.
so you don't need those
They
because you're going into
serve
hub
no
worlds.
purpose. And like Mario
Right.
64, when you die in that game and you lose a life, what happens? You get kicked out of the stage. Well, that also happens when you succeed. So it doesn't do anything. The only thing that happens when you get a game over and run out of lives is you get booted out to the front of the castle and you have to walk back in and find your portal, but that's it. That's like a 1 minute little deterrent, and it's just trivial. And so around then, when 3D platformers that were based on exploration were the hot commodity, yes, I would say lives were outdated. But now we have a lot of games where I think lives make sense. And I think they kind of hinge their argument on Crash 4,
But
which,
yeah, and I look at that and I'm like, well, Crash 4, I feel like, I think we've talked on the podcast before how we kind of don't love, everyone except for Setzer has no love for Crash. And I'm looking at Crash 4, I'm like, well, so you're saying you want to take away the identity of each level, like you want to just make them like short little segments that are interchangeable.
See, I don't
Uh,
see it that way at all. Have you guys ever played Shovel Knight at all?
yes,
yes, that's one of
The
the
but
best
as I
checkpoints
games
all
said,
of
it
the
over the
past
depends on
place
the
in
decade.
there,
game.
but I would say all those levels are very distinct.
Well,
But
as I said,
that,
it depends on the game.
well, so that game is interesting because it doesn't have the life mechanic, but it does have something to make those checkpoints matter. Because you will just continue to bleed currency, and that currency can be very useful to bulk up your repertoire. So you don't want to just keep dying and dying and dying over and over and over again. So you want to get to the next checkpoint and you want to keep yourself from dying. I always think of the lives as just another mechanic you can use to incentivize skill. And instead of lives, Shovel Knight does currency, and I think for that game, I think that works pretty well.
I think my qualm is more about quality checkpoint systems.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean that's fair.
Yeah,
um, because I'm thinking like, I don't know, like some of the more memorable levels in the Donkey Kong Country franchise, like Bramble Scramble or that stupid mountain level in Donkey Kong Country 1. Like, part of what makes those levels unique is that you got to make it through the whole thing and, like,
but are
for
you
your
remembering
lives.
those levels because they're fun or because they're frustrating?
So a little bit of both those platformers. And stuff like Bramble Scramble's fun and frustrating. Like, I feel like you're stripping away a bit of the identity of the game. You're like dumbing it down.
Here's an example of a game that really needs a life system and why you wouldn't want to get rid of it is Mega Man 11, which is a throwback to all those old Mega Man games, which had a life system that was very crucial to how that game works.
Sometimes even cruel.
Well, for
Yes.
sure. I mean, there's some element of that too, but if you don't have that life system, suddenly the urge to master any of those levels diminishes greatly because I mean, the big
Mm,
thing was you had the 2 lives. You had the 2 lives, or basically 3 chances to get through every stage, and you had 2 checkpoints on the way. You had the checkpoint in the middle of the stage, and you had the checkpoint in the boss gates. But if you were to say get to the boss gate checkpoint and then just get 30 tries at Snake Man, then suddenly that game becomes lesser in a lot of ways. I think less satisfying. Because when
well,
you actually finish a Mega Man level, you feel like, wow, I have mastered this stage. I have mastered this boss fight. I had to master the platforming, so I had enough lives to get to the boss fight, and I mastered the boss fight because I had to go through it a few times. Like I think that life system is so crucial to a game like that.
here's my perspective on it. Your argument relies on a desire to master a video game,
True.
and to my mind, that is the most worthless achievement in the world. um,
Well, I
I
get what you're
feel
saying.
no urge to master video games. I work to master my job. So when I play video games, I just want to have a good time. And the frustration of wasting my time, especially now that I'm an adult with a full time job, of dying and going all the way back, most of the time, that equation just isn't worth it to me anymore.
Yeah, I can see that, and that's why I actually think Crash 4 does it well, because in Crash 4 you have the option. You can choose to play with modern sensibilities, with no lives, and you just have infinite continues, or you can be a fuddy-duddy like me and play retro mode, which has a select number of lives, and you have to get through a stage in a certain number of tries. So I think that's a good approach because then it meets people where they're at rather than assuming, oh, everybody should want to master this stage, so we're going to put in a life system.
Well, I've always kind of felt like more options is a good thing. That's why I always kind of get annoyed when people are so resistant to easy modes in games. Like, if a game's designed around not having difficulty modes, that's fine. But there's nothing wrong with giving people choices to how to engage with your content if it's designed properly. So I'm okay with that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I really enjoy the Souls games. Um, and those are, for better or worse, now renowned for their quote unquote difficulty. I play those games the way they are, and I really love them.
Yeah.
If there were an easy mode added and someone else beat the game on easy, I would not give a lick, you know?
No, it doesn't matter. It's their personal experience. It's
Yeah,
like how they engage with the game. I really don't care what other people think of something I enjoy. Like, I think most fan communities are idiotic. Like, my favorite franchises are like Kingdom Hearts and Persona right now, and Yakuza, and I hate all those fan bases, especially Kingdom Hearts. So,
especially Kingdom
so,
Hearts.
like, I don't care how you engage with a game or if you enjoy it or not. As long as like if they made an easy mode to the Souls, as long as like the base game isn't impacted in any way, like as long as it's the same thing I'd be getting, why does it matter?
It's a lot of big
So
talk from a guy who said he's going to spend $60 on a rhythm game.
that rhythm game has got multiple difficulty settings. So
Well, you got
they
me
even have
there.
one button mode.
You got me
So
there. Can I play it with my PS2 Guitar Hero guitar?
Can I play it
you
with my
probably
Donkey
could.
Kongas?
You probably could if you can map the controls a specific way. I cannot say whether it would be fun or not, but you probably could do that. Um,
That's an amazing thing. The Donkey Kong. Every once in a while, you'll see it's just like clockwork. Someone will have modded the Donkey Kong bongos to work with another game, and you can watch somebody just haplessly try and get through something that it
well,
wasn't
look,
designed for.
I've my hot take is I find those feats impressive, but so pointless.
Well, I mean, obviously, nobody would want to play it that way. There's only one platformer designed for Donkey
Well, it's so
Kong
pointless.
bongos, and that's Donkey
Yeah,
Kong Jungle
it's
Beat.
right, but it's so pointless. Like I don't know why you even try it. It's like challenging runs in JRPGs. Like they've got an FF10 one that's like no sphere grid. Like that just doesn't seem enjoyable. It just
Damn,
seems
that sounds like
tedious.
fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like why would you do that? It's just like you're
Are you not a
spending way
fan of
more.
three heart runs in Zelda?
That's a
Nope.
little different. Little
I mean, I
different.
wouldn't do them, but
Because the challenge there is your skill at the game, not so much grappling with a different like control
where do
mechanic.
we stand on Nuzlocke runs?
Uh,
They're okay.
I'll say this. If you're looking to make Pokemon a harder experience,
Play a different game,
maybe
in my
you
opinion.
need to find some other hobby to occupy your time and give you that kind
Play
of challenge.
play Digimon Cyber
Oh,
Sleuth.
no Setzer. Pokemon has always been hard. Actually, Pokemon Red and Blue were like harder than Dark Souls even.
I think the hardest thing about those games was the number of words I learned playing them when I was like
I agree.
in
Yes,
kindergarten.
yes. No, but you'll see every time Pokemon Sword and Shield comes up, which I'm not going to defend. They're average games at best. But every time you see them come up, somebody goes, "Yeah, Pokemon used to be hard." No, you
No,
used to be an idiot. The games are always easy.
I could solo Red and Blue with
Yeah,
Charizard.
yeah. I would say
Like
if you can beat the game by using only your starter Pokemon ever, regardless of weaknesses, and get through the game just fine, which is how I beat Red and Blue, Gold and Silver, Ruby and Sapphire, probably Diamond and
right,
Pearl too. That's how I beat all those games. So to say they're hard is just you're lying to yourself.
Without that rare candy trick, I would only ever have a level like 95 Charizard or something. Like the only thing hard about those games was like balancing your party for EXP. Other than that,
It was really just about the hard part was grinding, and those older games made you grind more, and now they make you
right.
grind less. So it's like grinding is not difficulty; it's just time wasting.
So Setzer is correct. If you're looking for challenge in a Pokemon game, look elsewhere. Try a
Yes,
different
try a
game.
Digimon game perhaps.
Yes, Cyber Sleuth,
Yeah.
best Pokemon game released in the past decade.
And if that's too easy for you, well, then you've transcended the
If
hobby.
that's too easy, play that Digimon game with the tanks. What was that one?
Are you talking about?
What the heck are you talking about?
I don't know actually.
The
Wait.
Digibeetles, man.
This actually sounds familiar.
It's the randomly generated dungeon
Derek,
crawler.
check up
Oh,
on your
oh.
Google machine.
Digimon World 2? Is
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
No.
two.
2? The
Yeah,
JRPG?
Yes, the randomly generated dungeons.
I thought
It's
3 was the one with the randomly generated dungeon.
No, because I played 2 to death. And I never
I know
played
you
Digimon
did.
World 3.
Oh,
I played
Derek,
2 when I was a small baby, and I hated that game because it was way
Derek
too
played
hard
like
for me.
100 hours of it.
I love that game.
Oh my
And
God.
it's so bad. It's one of the worst games I've ever been like obsessed with. I even like wrote one of my 8,000 violence on video games papers I wrote in school. One of them was extolling the educational values of Digimon World 2 because of how the experience point system works.
Now that's cringe.
Well, I
it
said it
work?
taught you like intense mathematics if you like delved into it enough. And Dad was reading it, and he was like, "Do you really want to be admitting this in a paper?" Because it was like because I was talking about playtime and I mentioned 60 hours, and
I mean, you shouldn't admit that today. I mean, there's people out there. There should be like a group of people who just listen for anyone who likes Digimon World 2 and arrest them.
oh, I've tried to replay it, and that game is really
Oh,
bad.
that game's terrible.
On
You just
top of
liked it
having
because
really
you
bad
got
load
to. You just
times.
liked it because you got to have a Palmon as your buddy.
I don't like Patamon. You're thinking of Patamon first of all.
Oh, sorry.
And what sold me on it was
Okay, do you really
Vmon
want to
being on the
admit
cover.
this?
Look, on this podcast, it's on record that I like shouted at people what drunkenly at my bachelor party. What do you prefer, Pokemon or Digimon? So clearly, I've got no shame.
Well,
And anyway, what drew me to Digimon World 2 was Vmon was on the cover because I was mad he wasn't in Digimon World 1, even though that was before Season 2 of Digimon.
how
So
did you
there
know
you
about
go.
Season 2 of Digimon then?
Well, I didn't. At the time Digimon World 1 came out, I don't think I did.
Is this the place to admit that Digimon World 1 was our first PlayStation game ever?
That's not bad.
No,
No?
well, people kind of like that game.
They do?
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it from a novelty perspective now because it's a game that is so inscrutable
It's
that
really weird.
I can't believe they published that game like that, but they did.
Yeah, it's really strange. Well, that's why Digimon World 2 is more of an RPG. They were going for the Pokemon
And then
fans.
3 is like a dungeon crawler or something.
Well, that'll be it for this week. As always, you can reach us on Twitter at alltodaypod or on Gmail, alltodaypodcast@gmail.com. This is Derek,
I'm Setzer.
And this is Cheston.
and we will see you next week. Bye.
Adios.